This video will show you how to safely and successfully begin carving your block, hopefully without any blood. In order to begin carving our block, we are going to start with a very high-tech tool called a bench hook. And now the reason when they call a bench hook is because if you put it on your bench or your table, it hooks right on. They're so creative when they come up with these names. So the reason why we use a bench hook is to keep our block in place. We actually want to set our block right at the top of our bench hook, and this prevents our block from moving around. As we carve, our block wants to shift and move. We don't want that to happen because it can cause us to cut ourselves. So we use a bench hook. With your bench hook in place, you are now ready to carve. So we're going to take a tool called a V-blade, and you can see, again, they're so creative when they come up with these names. You have a blade that's in the shape of a V, and we want to use this tool to carve out all the lines that we drew for our design. Okay, so we're going to be tracing over all those lines with our V-blade. But there are some safety tips that you want to keep in mind. First, always remember to keep your little fingers behind the blade as you're carving. If you don't and you put your hand out in front, what's going to happen is your blade is going to trip and it's going to stab you in the finger, resulting in, okay, maybe not that extreme, but there will be blood and it will be gross. So please, again, make sure you always keep your fingers behind the blade. The second safety tip that you want to keep in mind to avoid any blood is to always carve away from yourself. So that blade should always be pointing away from you and also pointing away from the neighbor next to you. Okay, you never want to have that blade going toward the side, because if you do, you could stab your neighbor and they might get a little mad. You also don't want to have it go towards yourself, because then we're going to find out what you had for breakfast. Bacon. But yeah, that would still be kind of gross. So always carve away from yourself. And if you do slip, what's going to happen is it's going to hit your bench hook, and your bench hook's not going to bleed. Now, let's say you get to a point where you are trying to carve out a curved spot on your design and you can no longer carve away from yourself. What you want to do is actually rotate your block so that way you are still always carving away from yourself. Again, don't stab your neighbor. They're not going to like it. Okay, carving time. Let's take our V-blade and keeping it kind of parallel to the table. We don't want to have it sticking straight up and down. We're going to start anywhere on your design, and you're simply going to dig in just a tiny little bit with your V-blade and start gradually tracing over your lines. Okay, you want to really make sure that you take your time here. Carve with a little bit of pressure. You notice I'm not really pushing down a whole lot here. The blade kind of does the work for me. But you're going to trace over all those lines with your V-blade. Again, making sure that your blade is a little bit more parallel with the table. If you stick it straight up and down, you're basically going to be making some giant holes in your block, and you don't want that. Now, it's also really important that you're working slow, because if you mess up and you carve out something you didn't want to, there's no way you can really put it back. It's just kind of gone forever. So really take your time here, go nice and slow. So here's my block all carved out and done, and as you can see, I've traced over all my lines with my V-blade, including the border lines. Please make sure you guys really take your time, especially on those small areas. Keep those safety tips in mind so there's no blood, and have fun.